Don't miss this.
It sounds very personal. And you said yourself a minute ago, anyone who's kind of not with the program is not going to be in an administration. One thing that Davos, you might say, and the people come here stand up for, is liberal democracy. So if the idea that's going to be swept under the table is part of the idea, hopefully that's not what he means. What do you mean? What do you think he means by retribution?
Well, it's laughable that you would, or anyone would describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy. It's
standing up for it.
It's equally laughable to use the word dictatorship at Davos and aim that at President Trump. In fact, I think that's absurd. But I'm going to step aside from that constructive criticism and instead answer your question.
Yep.
And I'm going to be substantive here. President Trump, if he's the next president, for that matter, I think whoever the next conservative president is going to take on the power of the elites, which I mentioned earlier. But the thing that I want to drive home here, the very reason that I'm here at Davos, is to explain to many people in this room and who are watching, with all due respect, nothing personal, but that you're part of the problem. Political elites tell the average people on 3 or 4 or 5 issues that the reality is X, when in fact reality is Y. Take immigration. Elites tell us that open borders and even illegal immigration are okay. The average person tells us in the United States that both rob them of the American way of life. They're right. President Trump will take that on behalf of the average American. Elites also tell us that public safety isn't a problem in big American cities. Just travel to New York or Washington or Dallas, Texas. The average person will tell you that the lack of public safety damages not just the American way of life, but their life. President Trump will take that on. Thirdly, I guess the favorite at the World Economic Forum is climate change. Elites tell us that we have this existential crisis with so-called climate change, so much so that climate alarmism is probably the greatest cause for mental health crisis in the world. The solutions, the average person know, based on climate change are far worse and more harmful and cost more human lives, especially in Europe during the time that you need heating, than do the problem and the problems themselves. Fourth, 2 more here, Robin.
Okay.
The fourth, China. The number one adversary, not just to the United States, but to free people on planet Earth. Not only do we at Davos not say that, we give the Chinese Communist Party a platform. Count on President Trump ending that nonsense. And fifth, as we sit here, another supranational organization, the World Health Organization, is discussing foisting gender ideology upon the global South. These are practices that are under review, if not being rejected, by countries in Northern Europe. The new president, especially if it's President Trump, will, as you like to say, trust the science. He will understand the basic biological reality of manhood and womanhood. And do you know why? Not because of retribution, not because he's a dictator, but because he has the power of the American people behind him. And it's connected to Senator Portman's excellent point that in addition to needing a vigorous executive, we look forward to having the popular will inform both the House and Senate in 2025 to pass laws on all of those issues and many others. Ultimately, Robin, I think President Trump, if in fact he wins a second term, is going to be inspired by the wise words of Javier Milei, who said that he was in power not to guide sheep, but to awaken lions. That's what the average American and the average free person on planet Earth wants out of leaders.
Vi ringrazio tanto per lasciarmi parlare la lingua del cuore. E vi chiedo anche un favore, di pregare per me perché ho bisogno delle vostre preghiere. Io prego per voi, lo farò, ma io ho bisogno delle vostre preghiere e pregare al Signore perché ci unisca tutti. E avanti, siamo fratelli, ci diamo spiritualmente questo abbraccio e lasciamo che il Signore finisca l'opera che Lui ha incominciato. Perché questo è un miracolo, il miracolo dell'unità è incominciato. E dice uno scrittore italiano, il Manzoni, famoso, dice questa frase in un romanzo, un uomo semplice del popolo dice questa frase: Non ho trovato mai che il Signore abbia incominciato un miracolo senza finirlo bene. Lui finirà bene questo miracolo dell'unità. Vi chiedo di benedirmi e io vi benedico. Di fratello a fratello. Un abbraccio. Grazie.
1775 Bible shows that March is actually the first month of the year, and Sunday, yes, you heard right, is the first day of the week. Take a look.
And so this right here is the Bible from 1775 telling us at the time that we used to have 13 months. The first month of the year is March. Look at all the way to the end, guys. There's 13 months. 13 months. First day of the week, Sunday. Second day, Monday. Look at that. Seventh day or Sabbath, Saturday. This is the proof right here.
I've always been a curious
personnel and training. This project is in direct response to what many see as an increasingly radicalized political left. And ironically, it seems like the authors of Project 2025 are creating an increasingly radicalized political right in response. According to the Project 2025 website, the actions of liberal politicians in Washington have created a desperate need and a unique opportunity for conservatives to start undoing the damage that the left has wrought and build a better country for all Americans in 2025. It is not enough for conservatives to win elections. If we're going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place, ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration. This movement involves organizations that refer to themselves as the post-liberals, Christian patriots, or the common good conservatives that we talked about in a previous episode of The Prophetic Eye, and you might want to check that one out. According to MSNBC.com, the purpose of the Rights Project 2025 is to make faith the government's job. Well, I agree with that sentiment, as that's just another way of saying that they want to create a union of church and state. Or, in other words, what Revelation 13 refers to as the image to the beast. It's evident that the post-liberals, the Christian patriots, the common good conservatives, whatever they want to be called, it's obvious that they are fighting to take the country back from the immoral left. And this should come as no surprise at all as it relates to end-time prophecy. In the book The Great Controversy, we find a description of the battle between the right and the left. On page 587, it says, "This very class put forth the claim that the fast-spreading corruption is largely attributable to the desecration of the so-called Christian Sabbath, and that the enforcement of Sunday observance would greatly improve the morals of society." Do you see it? This statement from over 130 years ago highlights the fight of Christian nationalists to improve the morals of society and to remove corruption. And the so-called Christian Sabbath, better known as the Sunday Sabbath, is seen as a major solution to this problem. And this is the exact sentiment that has been expressed by many Christians. Take a look for yourself.
As I understand Christian nationalism, it is that the idea that your nation self-identifies, understands itself as Christian, and they would pursue their good as Christians, which would include policies that would kind of encourage people to attend church, encourage people to seek out essentially the means of grace. So this would include things like, I think, Sabbath laws, which would on Sundays would essentially, we could talk about this more, but it essentially kind of close down businesses and of an emergency and essential services. And that would be a way of not forcing people to attend church or do any sort of worship, but it would be kind of a reminder for the people that this is what this day is for, and you should do it. Again, this was something that was common in the past within this country to have that have Sabbath laws. Is basically that what you're doing is it's a de facto privileging of Christianity, because which religion has the Sabbath on Sunday? Well, it's Christianity, and so you're not doing it on Saturday. You're not doing it. So you're explicitly saying this is a Christian land, and we're going to all force you to obey some sort of Christian. And so that's the best critique. And I would just say, that's exactly what it does.
This article from MSNBC.com also highlights the focus on observance of the so-called Christian Sabbath. It says, Berry worries that God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, And until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day, and blames consumerism and secularism for the decline in Sabbath observance. Notice what they're talking about: Sabbath or Sunday rest, the loss of morality. It's clear to me that prophecy is being fulfilled right before our eyes, which is why I was so confused by a statement that I came across online. It says, the expectation that in the end of time a universal Sunday law will be enforced by the civil authorities upon the insistence of the public and at the demand of the apostate churches seems to be more and more unrealistic. This statement was from an article posted on August 21st, 2023, and its purpose is to challenge the concept of a Sunday law as it relates to the Adventist interpretation of Revelation 13. If you don't know the Adventist interpretation of this chapter, it's very simple, and it goes like this. Number 1, it identifies the first beast of Revelation 13 as the papacy. And number 2, it identifies the second beast of Revelation 13 as the United States, as a Christian nation that leads out in enforcing something called the mark of the beast. And what I believe to be the correct interpretation of the mark of the beast is the so-called change of the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, which, by the way, the Catholic Church openly says is their mark of authority. The Bible teaches that this changed day of worship will eventually be enforced, and those who hold to the true Sabbath will be persecuted, just as it was during the Dark Ages. Adventists have been talking about what we're seeing right now in efforts like Project 2025 for over 150 years as something that is going to happen someday. And obviously, as of today,